We assume depression is treated with talk and medication, but therapy is already changing, and it's not a human driving the shift. If you stay until the end, you'll see why the future of mental health care has already begun. First, the scale. According to the World Health Organization, more than 264 million people worldwide live with depression. Anxiety disorders often overlap. Together, they account for a significant share of global disease burden. Demand for care is enormous, access is limited, and that gap invites technology. The most immediate application is diagnosis. Artificial intelligence systems can analyze not only what a patient says, but how they say it. Facial expressions, voice tone, micro-movements. Tools like SimSensei, developed at the University of Southern California, were designed to detect subtle behavioral markers during interviews. Algorithms notice patterns humans may overlook, and that's just the first layer. The next step is predictive modeling. AI platforms have analyzed thousands of therapy session transcripts to identify which therapeutic direction may be most effective. In large-scale studies, certain systems demonstrated high predictive accuracy. Deep learning models can also monitor patterns associated with bipolar disorder by analyzing behavioral data from smartphones, sleep rhythms, activity levels, communication frequency. In some studies, accuracy approached 90%. That changes how early intervention works. Treatment isn't only about analysis, it's about interaction. Chatbots have been tested as therapeutic support tools. In controlled trials, participants with depressive symptoms who interacted with AI-based conversational systems showed measurable reductions in symptom severity compared to control groups receiving informational materials. The human therapist remained involved as a supervisor. AI didn't replace therapy, it extended it. For certain conditions, conversation isn't enough. Virtual reality is being used in exposure therapy for phobias. Instead of imagining a feared situation, patients experience controlled simulations. A person with flight anxiety can gradually confront that fear in a safe, immersive environment. The exposure is structured, gradual, supervised. Research has shown high patient acceptance and satisfaction with VR-based methods. Another unexpected tool, robotics. In therapy for individuals on the autism spectrum, robots can serve as mediators of social interaction. For some patients, interacting with a machine feels less threatening than direct human contact. This lowers anxiety and creates structured learning opportunities. Technology does not eliminate clinicians, it reshapes their role. We tend to think of therapy as conversation between two people. But today, algorithms are assisting diagnosis, monitoring, modeling, and even exposure training. Artificial intelligence does not replace empathy, but it expands access and precision. The future of psychiatry isn't humans versus machines, it's collaboration, and it's already here. Working from home sounds like a dream. No commute, no office politics. So why do so many people feel more stressed, not less? Stay until the end, and you'll understand why remote work can both reduce stress and amplify it. Before the pandemic, only a minority of workers operated remotely. Many simply didn't have the option. Then the shift happened almost overnight. At first glance, the benefits seem obvious, but science paints a more complicated picture. Let's start with the upside. Long daily commutes have been linked to increased stress, sleep problems, and poorer mental health outcomes. The more time spent traveling, the greater the strain. Remote work removes that burden. Less rushing, fewer obligatory social rituals. But if removing the commute helps, why does stress sometimes increase? Here's the paradox. Large European surveys have found that a significant portion of remote workers report elevated stress levels, in some cases more frequently than office employees. Why? Because the brain depends on boundaries. And remote work erases them. When home and office occupy the same physical space, the transition ritual disappears. There's no psychological switch between roles. Structure fades, physical movement drops, distractions increase, and during crisis periods, uncertainty adds another cognitive load. The brain thrives on predictability. Uncertainty taxes it. Anxiety plays a major role. Cognitive research shows that heightened anxiety reduces concentration, slows task completion, and increases error rates. A worried brain allocates resources to scanning for threats, not solving problems. So reduced productivity under stress isn't laziness, it's neurobiology, but it can be managed. First, create physical boundaries. Even a small designated workspace signals a shift in role. Second, impose structure. Set clear start and stop times. Plan tasks. Schedule breaks. Third, move. 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity improves circulation and boosts endorphins. And finally, limit information overload. Constant exposure to alarming news elevates stress. Remote work works best when structure replaces chaos. Students experienced similar challenges. When education moved online, self-discipline and routine became critical. Alternating activities and maintaining social contact help regulate stress levels. Isolation amplifies anxiety. Connection reduces it. Remote work is neither paradise nor punishment. It is a boundaryless environment. When transitions disappear, stress can rise. When structure returns, stability follows. The challenge isn't working from home, it's building systems within it. Once the brain regains rhythm and predictability, resistance drops. Remote work doesn't break us. Lack of structure does. Some people just seem naturally good at directions, but it's not luck, and it's not magic. If you stay until the end, you'll understand whether spatial intelligence is fixed or fully trainable. Most people think spatial thinking is just about not getting lost. It's much more than that. It's the ability to rotate objects in your mind, to judge distance, direction, and movement. It's what helps you pack a suitcase, park in a tight space, or visualize a 3D structure. Athletes rely on it. Radiologists depend on it. Gamers use it constantly. And this is only the surface. Here's the fascinating part. Your brain literally builds maps. Inside the hippocampus are specialized cells that respond to location. In 1971, neuroscientist John O'Keefe discovered place cells, neurons that fire when an animal or person occupies a specific position in space. Later, researchers identified head direction cells and grid cells. In 2014, O'Keefe received the Nobel Prize for this work. This isn't a metaphor. You carry an internal navigation system. The real question is how detailed your map is. Now comes the controversial part. Does everyone start with the same map? Research suggests hormones like testosterone can influence performance on spatial tasks. In controlled experiments, temporary hormonal changes affected results on mental rotation tests. Some evolutionary theories argue that navigation once played a key survival role. But biology is not destiny, because something more powerful is at play. Spatial thinking improves with training. Construction toys, puzzles, chess, 3D modeling, they all strengthen mental rotation. But action video games show especially strong effects. Studies in the United States found that fast-paced games improve spatial attention and rotation skills. Interestingly, female gamers often show dramatic improvement compared to non-gamers. Practice reshapes performance, not gender, and that changes the narrative. What about so-called directional hopelessness? There is no medical diagnosis called topographical stupidity. However, there is a rare condition called topographical agnosia, usually linked to brain injury, where people cannot navigate even familiar places. For most people, getting lost isn't a disorder, it's a skill gap, and modern life may be widening that gap. We've outsourced navigation to smartphones. GPS apps reduce cognitive effort. They're convenient. But when we rely entirely on turn-by-turn directions, the brain practices less independent mapping. Like any system, it weakens without use. Your internal GPS updates through experience. Without updates, the map stays blurry. We assume some people are born with a better sense of direction, but in reality, everyone has a built-in navigation system. The difference lies in how often it's used, how often it's challenged, and whether we allow it to grow. Spatial thinking isn't a talent reserved for a few. It's a trainable system. And if you get lost often, it may not be your brain's fault. It feels like winter just makes us tired and miserable. But it's not the cold. It's not even the short days. If you stay until the end, you'll understand why winter depression actually begins in the summer. Here's what most people don't realize. Winter sadness isn't just a mood. Every November, the same pattern appears. Fatigue, cravings for sugar, zero motivation. Social media fills with gloomy posts, and suddenly it feels normal to shut down. But the real cause runs deeper. It's biochemical, and it starts forming long before the first snow falls. To understand it, we need to go back to summer. This is the unexpected part. The problem of winter begins during the warm season. Our ancestors spent summers outdoors, farming, walking, living in sunlight. We spend hours in offices and apartments. Summer is supposed to be a storage season, a time to build reserves of vitamins, minerals, and essential fatty acids. But the most critical reserve is vitamin D, and this is where things get serious. Vitamin D isn't really just a vitamin. It's a prohormone. Your skin produces it from cholesterol when exposed to a specific spectrum of sunlight, when the sun is high in the sky. On its own, it's inactive. Inside the body, it becomes calcitriol, a powerful fat-soluble hormone. Receptors for it exist in nearly every cell: your brain, your heart, your immune system. When levels drop, it's not just bones that suffer. Your mood does too. And that's only part of the story. Here's the complication. Most of us barely get the right kind of sunlight. We're indoors at midday, and when we do spend time at the beach, we use SPF sunscreen, which blocks ultraviolet radiation and reduces vitamin D production. In northern latitudes, the necessary wavelength is available only a few months a year. In many cities, just 3 to 4 months. The body simply doesn't build enough reserves, and winter exposes that gap. So what about Arctic populations? How do they survive with almost no sunlight? Nature always has a backup plan. Vitamin D3 is found in fatty fish, especially cod liver. Traditional northern diets relied heavily on it. But copying that diet entirely isn't realistic for modern urban life. So we need a smarter strategy, and it's surprisingly simple. Small, consistent habits make a real difference. On clear days, spend at least 20 to 30 minutes outside. Expose your arms, neck, or back when possible. Eat fatty fish a few times a week. Ensure adequate magnesium, zinc, iodine, and vitamin K2. They support proper vitamin D metabolism. And the most rational step? Test your levels. If they're below 30 nmol, supplementation is often necessary. But biology isn't the whole story. Even with balanced hormones, winter affects the mind. And this part isn't chemistry, it's culture. Northern countries learned long ago that dark seasons require intentional comfort. The Danish call it hygge, the art of creating warmth inside when it's cold outside. Light, candles, gatherings, warm drinks. They don't raise vitamin D, but they protect your mental resilience. And now everything connects. We assume winter depression is about temperature or personality. But it's really about a hormone we failed to store. Vitamin D influences nearly every system in your body, including the brain. When it's low, winter feels heavier than it should. Winter isn't the enemy, It's just a season that requires preparation, and that preparation begins in the sun.